thank you, Elaine Bentley Bond, for just being on Charlene's Vision Show.
My pleasure.
Thank you for coming. So just first, we wanted to start out to find out, like, what do you do for a living?
I'm a psychotherapist. I have been in practice in the Norwich area for 25 years.
Wow, it's a long time. Yeah. And so what do you actually do with the therapist? Tell me a little bit about your daily activities.
Well, people come to me for a number of reasons. I work primarily with individuals and with couples.
Okay.
And oftentimes people will come in with a specific problem, say fear of crossing bridges, of driving across bridges, or they may have a general anxiety or discomfort. They may have something upsetting that's happened to them that they want to get over. They may have a lot of stuff that's piled up over the years that they need to work on, or a couple may be going through a difficult patch and need somebody to help them figure it out or learn how to communicate better.
Wow. Now, if somebody just needs your services, how can they find you?
Probably the easiest is just to Google my name.
Oh, cool.
Elaine Bentley Bond, B-A-U-G-H-N, that's B like boy. And I'm on the Psychology Today website.
Oh, cool.
And I have a blog called Toward a Drama-Free Life. So people can find me there. I have a public Facebook page as well.
Oh, cool. It's a lot of ways. So basically, I see that you wrote the book, 5 Rules for Drama-Free Living. Actually, it's out. How long have you?
It came out the 1st of June.
Wow, 1st of June, 2017. Great. Now, just basically just discuss a little bit about what your book is, because, you know, the drama-free is something everybody probably wants.
It appeals to some people. There are other people who say, I want my drama. But really, it's about stress management, and when I say rules, what I'm really talking about, I like the joke, gravity, it's the law. That rules are really, it's sort of, this is how it actually works. So rule 1 is that there is one thing in the world that I have power over and responsibility for, and it's the person in the mirror. So when
Not your husband?
when I try to fix other people, or when I don't take responsibility for my own well-being, you know, if I'm underfed, under-rested, not nurturing myself, then the tendency is to get resentful of whoever else isn't taking care of me. So when I take care of myself, I'm nicer to be around.
Okay. Now, just for instance, you know, when someone has a baby, they are responsible for that baby as well.
Absolutely.
So how does that fit inside the rule of, you know, you're responsible of myself? When I look in the mirror, I'm responsible of me. You're responsible for your sibling, your child as well?
Well, what happens is when you have a new baby, it's 100%. I mean, it's almost like when you start with the baby in utero, it's clearly 100%.
Right.
When it gets outside, it's pretty much 100% for a good while yet. And as the child learns to do more for itself, from eating to walking to going to school to going out in the world with its friends, more and more it becomes responsible for itself. And you have less power over the choices it's making.
Right. Now I have a question with that. I know a lot of people say, my kids are stressing me out. You know? So how does that work?
Well, that falls under what I call the story.
Okay.
The way we describe a problem is sort of the story we tell ourselves about it. So if I say, I can't drive, that's a story.
Okay.
And where I would go into that question is can't. What's the story? If I don't have arms and legs, perhaps I can't drive.
Right.
But assuming that I have arms and legs and I have good neurological control of those, I haven't yet learned to drive.
Right.
So when I change the story to haven't yet, then the possibility of changing the future happens. So my kids are stressing me out could be reframed. That's the therapy word for that. Rephrased as, I have a lot of stress regarding my kids.
Right.
So, or if I wanted to take it even further, I stress myself out about the kids. So what I would, and if you were in my office and we were talking about your, we'll say little kids, I would say what situations are more problematic than others, what situations doesn't it happen, what situations, what might be happening before that. So, for example, one of the popular times for families to argue is right after school or work, but before dinner.
Okay.
Bottom line is everybody's blood sugar's low. Nobody is nice when they're hungry.
Oh, right.
Snickers is making $1 million on this right now.
Yeah,
they brought hangry into the language, and I think it's really great that they did, because when blood sugar's low, our brains don't work properly.
Wow, it's interesting.
So, when you tease apart the issues that build to that stressed out feeling, there's an awful lot there that we can tweak, that we can alter, that we can reduce. So we're not going to pick up your kids and put them somewhere else, but we can bring you in a better condition to face them, them in a better condition to face you. I'm a big believer in hors d'oeuvres. Get appetizers going while dinner's being made, or have something in the car if you're picking up the kids after. So that people arrive home a little more peaceful to start with.
More calm.
We all think better when we got fuel in us.
Right, that makes sense. I never thought of it that way. Right. So I know you have two. Stop. I'm trying to manage the world.
Well, that's chapter 2. That's not rule 2.
Oh, okay.
And that's really, it's sort of the corollary to taking responsibility for yourself.
Right.
It's stop trying to fix everybody else, because it's annoying and it doesn't work.
Right. So you basically stay and express on that. You're trying to manage, like just say something that you do annoys me, and it's
okay. So there's the language. It annoys me would mean that it has the annoyance inside it.
Okay.
And if it annoys me, then if it has the annoyance inside, it would annoy everybody. But if it just annoys me, really, I feel annoyed at that.
Okay.
So the place where your power is the I feel. And that relates to the story.
Okay.
I feel annoyed when you put your feet on the coffee table.
Right.
Okay, so what can change about that situation? My attitude, my thoughts, your feet, or the coffee table.
Right.
So how many ways could we change that?
You can move the coffee table.
I have an article on my blog, Toward a Drama-Free Life, that's titled, Can a Dish Brush Save Your Marriage? And it really is about how can we change the physical environment to reduce arguments. So considering a coffee table that is footstool qualified, which a lot of people are doing these days.
Right. So your thing is, okay, so it shouldn't just bother me, or maybe
No, I don't. I really try to avoid the word should at all times.
Okay.
Because what you feel is what you feel.
Exactly.
You always have permission to feel what you feel.
Right.
But the story that you're telling yourself is triggering an uncomfortable feeling or an unhappy feeling.
So how can you get that to stop?
Well, it's about the specific situation and what story you're telling yourself.
Okay.
So challenging the story, is there a different way I can look at it? Is there a different way I can hold that? Instead of the kids are stressing me out, I'm not meeting the situation from a calm place.
Okay.
What kind of self-care do I need to do so that when I'm dealing with the kids, I'm dealing with them from my most mature self.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. I was interested with number 2. I know it says we are all containers for feelings. I'm like, a container? Why did she use a container?
Thank you for asking that, because this is something I usually cover with my clients first session. That's how important it is. We're all containers for feelings, in that whatever we've been through that we haven't fully processed goes in the container, waits, stews, ferments, and at some point may boil over, leak out, or explode.
Right. That's what you mentioned.
And people say you're overreacting.
Yeah.
What they may not understand is that what just happened maybe resonates with something you've been carrying around with you.
It could be for years.
Could be, for many years. And so where we work on that in terms of therapy is identifying what's in the container, which is a way of identifying where your vulnerabilities are, the kind of thing that can poke you in the sore spot.
And sometimes people probably don't even know that.
Oh, no, why would they if you haven't told them? And it's maybe not even any of their business.
Right, but I'm saying the person themselves, like, you know,
Good
so
point.
it's like, I didn't even know that actually triggers something, but just getting all of it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's important. So sometimes getting it out, but getting it out in a way that's safe. So spewing, you know, sometimes is inevitable. You know, you drop a hammer on your toe, you're going to say some expletive.
Right.
But once that's out, do you then yell at someone? That's not helpful. It's natural to spew for that brief minute. But if you keep spewing, people want to be around you less and less.
Right.
Because it's just not fun. So back to the container and getting stuff out of the container. One is to make a list, you know, of all the stuff you've been through that you have never really talked about, you've never really kind of finished emotionally with. And a journal's a really good way to do that. There are exercises. I have something that's clinically can be called a full out letter, which is a letter that you're not going to send. Is a way to clear, you know, frustration. Sometimes when you're really, really angry with somebody, but you know it's not in your best interest, or maybe it's your boss and you really just need to get it out of your system, but you can't take it to them because your job would be in jeopardy. So you write it as if you could send it, but to do it with the full venom of that frustrated part of yourself, and then let it cool. And at least 24 hours later, read it from your most mature self, and think of it as a way to give yourself empathy for that discomfort. And then somewhere in the midst of that letter, you may find one or two sentences that are just the truth, and that you can find a way to actually communicate to that person. Some people, you know, people who've been stepping on your feelings for, you know, 20 years, you may have 17 letters to write before you find a way to get to something that you can actually say to them. But you need to be able to spew freely with knowing you're not going to send it.
Right, you're not going to send it, and are you actually going to approach that person about it, or is it just something for you
That's
to just...
an individual choice. The issue is recognizing that everybody's got containers. So if I come at you and say, you blah, 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 you've got a container too. You might just be dumping it right back on me, and that's not going to be helpful.
Right, and you talked about like the energy, it takes all of our energy.
Well, sometimes when your container's full and it
spills over.
You don't. Well, no, it's this is about not saying your truth. And so it's like it takes all your energy to hold the lid on, and that really starts to manifest as depression. Oftentimes, you know, frustration that isn't expressed shows up as a low feeling. It even will feel like a heavy weight on your upper chest. And so getting in touch with all that stuff that you've never said can be a way to free that. A lot of times people who are depressed don't think of themselves as being angry, but quite often when you start digging into depression, you'll see that there's some unexpressed anger in there that will benefit from being ventilated to somebody who isn't involved in the problem. That's where therapists can be useful, because you're saying your version of the truth to somebody who doesn't get a vote in your life, but is willing to hear you. And the way I think of therapy, sometimes I'm holding up an honest mirror to my clients, and it's like, how do you like this? Well, how about from over here?
Different angles.
So you see yourself from the outside, from somebody who doesn't have an axe to grind, doesn't have anything to get out of telling you things from a different point of view. Right.
Now, do you think change is good in that as well? Because I think sometimes people needs to change in certain areas, or, you know, because I'm just saying, like, for me, for instance, me as a child, I know I have grown, maybe not the word change, but has grown into something more of like, okay, now I get to understand that, you know. So I think when you mentioned the word journal, writing down your feelings, writing down and say, hey, you know what? And what I notice is that sometimes when I start writing down, I start crying.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh my
We're
goodness.
wired for that. We're wired to cry, and it's part of what clears us.
So that's part of the container, maybe leaking out, maybe in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, and saying, okay, I'm finally releasing, because I never talked about it, I never mentioned it, and now I said I'm going to start writing about it.
Yeah.
Then it's released.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
It is. So it's a change in your life, too. You know, you get to be more humble, you know, and to say, okay, you know, now I get to accept things that you didn't really accept before. Yeah. So the rule number 3 is basically what?
Well, the rule is stated as emotions do not mature.
Right. Now, I didn't really get that one out.
Okay. Well, the way I would describe it to a client is when we come into this world, little tiny beings, already fully loaded with the programs for feelings. That doesn't mature. What matures is our capacity to manage ourselves when we have feelings. So I talk about thinker and feeler, adult and child, cognition, emotion, if you want to go there. Really talking about 2 different parts of the brain.
So you're saying it doesn't grow?
It doesn't alter. It doesn't change. The feelings don't mature. That's our most primitive self. What matures is our capacity to know not everybody deserves to hear about our feelings. It's none of their business. Or some of our feelings, you know, might be better kept quiet. From, you know, from certain situations or certain, you know, if I think my next door neighbor's husband's really hunky, that's probably a good idea for me to keep that to myself. But if I'm operating from my least mature self, from my inner child, I might be inappropriately friendly with my neighbor. But if my thinker's helping my feeler, I can say, oh, he's really cute, but then, you know, go home and take that energy out on my husband.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that one right there was like a mind-boggling, because I was like, oh, you know, the thinker and the way it works, that's like, it's like probably hard to digest.
Well, it's the thinker is really based on the prefrontal cortex, which is the last part of the brain to develop. They're saying now that it isn't finished being developed until age 30 or so.
Wow.
We used to think it was early 20s, but when you look at college students, obviously they're not done. But really what we're talking about is the part of you that lives in the moment, that little kid, oh my gosh, that's really delicious, wonderful, I want to eat it all part. And the part of you that
so
says,
you know you shouldn't eat all of that.
You know, you can have one piece. But knowing that if I have more than that, or I eat all the ice cream, or drink all the beers, then there's going to be consequences.
Exactly.
The feeler doesn't get consequences because it's like a little 3-year-old that lives in the moment. I want what I want when I want it. I like what I like. I don't like that.
That's when they have the tantrums and all of that.
Yeah. So that we all still have that part in us, and that's the part that when it's happy, that's our joy. That's our, like, oh my goodness, it skyrockets and it's beautiful and everything's wonderful.
So that's the chair.
And part of the thinker's job is to protect the feeler, to create a world that's safe for the feeler to live in. So you don't keep eating all the ice cream and getting a tummy ache.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Now it gets more, once you explain it more. With the examples, I think is really good too, because it gives people, okay, now I can relate it to something. Okay, so explain the small magic poem on page 34.
Can I read it?
You sure can.
I'd love to. Yeah, it's really talking from the point of view of the inner child.
Okay.
Small magics. My little self hears difference of perspective as criticism, rejection. I want to tell her it's okay, but she holds this sadness like a used lollipop, linted in travel, caught in a dizzy-colored sticky swirl. My little self is stubborn, clings to familiar struggles, as if by repetition she might learn the rhyme and break their spell.
Wow. So I'm suffering looking. Explain that.
Well, it's that we do tend to operate from our inner child a lot. And
More than we know.
And the strategies that inner child has been using all of her life to get her needs met sometimes work, but once you're grown, sometimes they don't work. But she keeps doing the same thing, trying to get that good result.
It could be so. Like when she would be young, it would work, but when you get older, it doesn't work as often.
Or it's just not appropriate.
Right, exactly. That makes sense. Yeah. It's not appropriate. So the poem is interesting, and it's very powerful to people because it's like, wow. Now, when you had in there also about when you can't sleep.
Oh yeah.
I read the book. Explain that as well, because I actually tried that at home.
And how'd that work?
Because I can't sleep sometimes, and I'm like, okay, she said count backwards softly.
Well, you imagine a kind of rectangle in your vision with your eyes closed, and at each corner of you're following the trail around the edges of it, and at each corner you go down one digit from 100. So you start 100, 99, 98, but you visualize the number at each step of the way.
So you look at the visualize.
So part of what's happening is you're doing something that you don't have to work real hard to think about. The numbers will come to you pretty spontaneously, but you do have to make a little bit of effort to visualize.
Right.
That combination will take your mind away from worry thoughts, away from distractions that would keep you awake. So part of it is removing the distractions, and part of it's giving you something a little bit hypnotic to focus on as you go around. So it's 199, but slowly. So
very slowly. And before you get to what number you think you would be asleep?
Well, generally, if I get to 85, it's going to mean I'm going to probably do a second round. But part of where people keep themselves awake is that they worry about being awake, because that alone, the body will take what it needs. So if I wake up in the middle of the night and I sort of feel like I'm probably not going to go right back to sleep, I might just grab a book and read for a little while.
Right.
But never electronics, never anything with lights on, because it resets the pineal gland and it gets in the way of going back to sleep.
Wow.
A lot of folks get, turn the devices on, or they watch something on screen just before bedtime, and that activates the brain in a way that's other than restful.
Okay. Now let's get down to the next rule, the rule number 4.
Rule number 4 is what you practice, you become.
Okay.
And that really relates to neural pathways. The brain makes little roads or ruts or grooves, however you want to call it. When we do something the first time, it's really effortful.
Okay.
When you started to ride the bicycle, you had to learn all those steps.
Okay. Now, what about rule number 1? I'm sorry to cut you off. Just running out of time. And the last rule, number 5?
Rule number 5 is drama is optional.
Okay.
You can make the choice of whether to jump on the drama train or give it a little queen wave as they go by.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure.
I just wanted to make sure we got through all the rules before it was time. It's just like so interesting, so engaging. It's like, okay, and it's very powerful. Now, you think everyone could be able to follow these rules and it will work?
Everyone, that's a big statement.
Exactly.
But I think that it's, my hope is that it will be helpful to a lot of people, either helping therapy go faster, helping people realize that therapy isn't so scary, or maybe avoid therapy altogether. Okay.
Well, thanks again for being on the show. Great success on your book. Hopefully you get a lot of people watching the show. Again, 5 rules. And thanks for being on Charlene's Vision Show. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Actually, night.
Yes.
Okay.